Jimmy Neutron, you being a child does not exempt you from the law. The evidence against you is stifling, and I will be your judge, jury, and if need be, executioner. So, Jimmy Neutron assisted in kidnapping the entire parental population of his town. Oh. It's true. And now he's a fugitive that hasn't been seen since 2006. He's been off the grid for almost 20 years, but I haven't forgotten what he's done. In fact, they released a movie about his first adventure. I was a little kid watching in wonder, but now all I see is criminal activity. My brain's finally wrinkled enough to understand this little boy is equal parts genius and felon. He should have been locked up after this premiere to end his reign of terror. Thus, I've made this video to serve as a permanent recitation of every crime Jimmy Neutron commits in his 2001 movie, Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. This court is now in session. Let the trial begin. The Tweaker Bell Court will now cite several misdemeanors, civil penalties, federal and international violations committed by one
James Isaac Neutron. James Isaac Neutron.
James Isaac Neutron. Although he was only 10 years old at the onset of these crimes, I have only one thing to say. I don't care. Further, all these criminal offenses, sans international instances, occurred in Retroville, Texas. That's right. In this very state which bastions justice, some of the most heinous crimes went unnoticed.
Girl, what the fuck is you talking about?
Well, that makes sense, actually. Nevertheless, I find it is my duty to take the law into my own hands. There's nothing more Texan, nay, nothing more American than this practice. However, I must concede one truth. I am not a lawyer.
Oopsie.
But that's hardly a cause for concern. Let's just have a little fun, shall we? I think it is imperative to call Mr. Neutron's genius status into question. He has earned his title. No doubt he is a mastermind. But does he have the qualifications to follow it up? The answer is no. Well, what proof do you have of this young man being devoid of proper training qualifications, I hear you asking? In Texas, one must complete several levels of education to obtain an engineering license. Not only does Mr. Neutron lack a bachelor's degree of engineering from an accredited United States university, he hasn't even attempted to take the fundamentals of engineering and or the principles and practice of engineering exam. His experience in the realm of engineering is evident by his work, but I have only this left to say. 6:20 p.m. Michael is in the dining room talking about Jimmy. What would you want to say to Jimmy? Pretty much I would let Jimmy know that he is a dumb nerd and the things that he made were not something I would particularly create for myself. They were illegal kinds of things. And he said that those things were meant to be invented by an intelligent engineer. So if that's the case, he should have left them back in the shop and he should have never even invented them because he was unqualified to create those things. If that's the case. And I think that Jimmy is just a disgrace. He's a disgrace to engineers who are actually intelligent and visionary, and he just doesn't have the vernacular he thinks he possesses. Somebody lied to him several times and told him that he was swag, cool, and smart and big-brained, and he's nothing like that. He's nothing of the sort.
Got it!
Mr. Neutron has built many mechanisms in his home. A mobile, which makes his bed in the morning. A pair of mechanical arms to hand him his repetitive wardrobe items. And, arguably, his two most lucrative inventions. Robo-Barber and the Gingivitis 2000. Albeit impressive, Mr. Neutron has once again acted without recourse. Section 245 of the Texas Constitution and Statutes outlines the process by which homeowners, let alone children, are meant to procure building permits. Therefore, all these inventions, installed without local government oversight, are illegal. Further, creating an entire underground laboratory without a permit would startle even the most open-minded citizen in Retroville. Considering the size of this lab, I wouldn't doubt he's encroached on his neighbor's subterranean land. Even his own parents seem oblivious to his ventures. What a secretive fellow. The existence of this layer is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Mr. Neutron's breach of the law. We will return to this topic shortly. In the opening of this quasi-documentary, Mr. Neutron launches a toaster into space. I must call his aerospace piloting expertise into question here. Jimmy, being only 10 at the time of filming, has not received proper training or licensure to operate this spacecraft. Genius status does not exempt an individual from this. Him and one Mr. Carl Weiser, who Jimmy takes as his, quote, deployment system, break the atmosphere and launch some sort of communication toaster to contact extraterrestrials. None of this was done with proper permissions. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, the timeline to launch the spacecraft would take upwards of 5 years to review his equipment, launch site, and calculations, as well as coordination with several government entities. Yet, he ignored these laws and endangered one of his friends to contact aliens. That's not all either. In the process, Mr. Neutron violated Chapter 1, Subchapter F, Part 91 of Title 14 of the Code of Federal Regulations, which is to say he flies in airspace which he was not granted permission to enter. This subjects him to civil penalty according to subsection 93.333 in Title 14. Since we've exposed his crude discount of federal legislation, let us return to his home. Mr. Neutron conducts various experiments in his underground lair, including invisible hamsters, burping soda formula, and a girl-eating plant. While I admire his zest for innovation, and he is allowed to experiment on hamsters rather than protected animals like cats, dogs, or horses, he has not registered with the Secretary of Agriculture of the United States. This puts him in direct federal violation of the Animal Welfare Act of 1966. Similarly, to own a one-of-a-kind, all things considered, endangered girl-eating plant, ignoring the hate crime capabilities, Mr. Neutron would need a permit according to Section 9, Subsection 1D, of the Endangered Species Act of 1973. The last permission Mr. Neutron fails to attain is in regard to stealing machines and converting them into rockets. Surely Mr. Neutron knew this property was not his, but he convinced all the kids in town to aid him. Although he and his accomplices did this for a noble cause, it is my duty to hold it against him. Now that we've discussed his blatant disregard for local and federal laws, let us move on to his gravest crimes. These are what I like to call... I stand before you now... I sit before you now to properly convey evidence of Mr. Neutron's most egregious crimes committed in his movie. After sneaking out with his girls, Carl and Sheen, to the newly opened Retroland amusement park, the three wish they had no parents to prevent them from doing whatever they wanted. While innocent in its premise, this fantasy turns into reality, for Mr. Neutron's communication device has reached an alien race who come to Earth with the sole purpose to abduct and subsequently eat the parents of Retroville. They even leave forged notes for every child in town to find in the morning stating, "Dear son/daughter, we have gone to Florida for an extended vacation. Love, your parents." Thinking nothing of these obviously fake letters, the children of Retroville proceed to engage in what can only be described as shenanigans, flooding the school, eating food to their heart's content, and breaking every rule, from letting out the cold in the fridge, mismatching their clothes, and one case of peeing in the shower. Mr. Neutron even attempts an assassination against Cindy, his arch nemesis, with the infamous aforementioned girl-eating plant. Aside from the attempt at someone's life, Mr. Neutron has unknowingly committed criminal negligence. He has inadvertently caused this citywide abduction. One may retort, "He's only 10. How could he have known the picture of him and his parents would entice the aliens to visit Earth? How could he have known the aliens were a parent-eating species?" Isn't he a genius? If he was so smart, wouldn't he have prepared for this contingency and only put himself in the line of fire? Because of his negligence, he recklessly endangers his peers without batting an eye. These children lack proper training to operate construction equipment. They have the possibility to become seriously injured. One unlucky soul is even left to toy with a Ferris wheel at its highest peak. This is done for the sake of rescuing parents, but it is still highly illegal. On his part, it is willful negligence, purposefully employing these children and putting them in harm's way. In addition, all these machines are pre-manufactured. Mr. Neutron willingly and knowingly steals them for his mission, even going so far as to abandon them on the alien planet. Speaking of alien planets, I've come to discover this, quote, heroic expedition is not sanctioned by the United States government. Meaning Mr. Neutron violates several international laws. By essentially invading and waging war on this intergalactic entity, Mr. Neutron commits several war crimes. If the president is held to the War Powers Resolution, preventing them from waging war without prior congressional consent, Mr. Neutron surely should be held to the same standard. In fact, he violates the Geneva Conventions of 1949, conscripting children under the age of 15 and using them to actively participate in hostilities. For this, his verdict will be striking. James Isaac Neutron is a menace. He willfully puts his friends and peers in danger after his actions caused the parents of Retroville, Texas to be body snatched by an alien race. Although his rescue mission was accomplished, how will the jury feel about his prior misdeeds? In the case of Jimmy Neutron v. Retroville, Texas, the jury finds James Isaac Neutron guilty on 6 civil counts. For building and excavating without proper permits, Mr. Neutron will be fined $7,000, $2,500 for the interior of his home, $4,500 for the scale of his backyard lair. For unlawfully launching spacecraft, Mr. Neutron will be fined $200,000 for his first launch and $700,000 for his launch to save the parents of Retroville. For violating air traffic laws, Mr. Neutron will be fined $1,000. For conducting unauthorized experiments on plants and animals, violating the Animal Welfare and Endangered Species Act, Mr. Neutron will be fined $12,000. For the reckless endangerment and willful negligence of his friends and peers, Mr. Neutron will be fined the maximum amount of $350,000. For his act of criminal negligence against the parents of Retroville, Mr. Neutron will be spared jail time, but he will be fined the maximum amount of $350,000. Let the record show, Mr. Neutron will be fined a total of $1,620,000. The jury also finds James Isaac Neutron guilty of violating the War Powers Resolution and Article 8 of the Geneva Conventions. For these transgressions, the jury has sentenced Mr. Neutron to jail for life and a fine of $200,000.
Y'all are going to jail! Period!
It is here, in these hallowed halls of justice, where we finally put Mr. Neutron behind bars, so he has no chance of harming anyone ever again. Bailiff, you may take the defendant to the county prison where he will rot for the rest of his life. In all honesty, I love this movie. I think it reveals a lot about who Jimmy is, like how he gets his smarts from his mom instead of his dad, who's a nincompoop. His flirtatious streak with Cindy, which will be an ongoing theme throughout the series. Don't leave the tent.
So they leave the tent. Don't leave the tent! Don't leave the tent!
The shrinking of his teacher reminds me of Solar Opposites. The fact that Nick, the coolest guy in school, still wears a helmet while he's skateboarding. Although there are a significant lack of helmets in space, they can just somehow breathe. Me and my roommate watched Gravity recently, and it scared the living daylights out of us. At 600 kilometers above planet Earth, the temperature fluctuates between 120 and negative 100 degrees Celsius. There is nothing to carry sound, no oxygen, and no air pressure. Life here is impossible. On Letterboxd, my roommate's review for that movie was, I changed my mind. Nobody go to space. But the spaceship launch is cool as hell. I remember loving it as a kid. I just love the movie so much, and this whole video is a dedication to that. I hope you're keeping yourself informed, keeping yourself safe. Just take care of the ones you love. This is such a weird time in history, and it's never really a normal time in history, but now more than ever, just protect your peace however you can. Read a book, watch a movie, but always remember, keep your head strong, but your heart soft. I'll see you soon. Bye.